Modern professionals are trained to view distraction as a discipline problem. We assume that if we just try harder, we can force ourselves to concentrate. But neuroscience dictates that focus is strictly an energy allocation problem. Sustained attention and planning are governed by the prefrontal cortex. It is one of the most metabolically expensive structures in the body. Its fuel tank is strictly finite. During concentrated effort, it burns through glucose and oxygen and depletes on a highly predictable curve. Brute forcing your attention without strategic breaks fights against 300 million years of brain evolution. Treating cognitive fatigue as a character flaw guarantees burnout. Peak performance requires engineering workflows that respect our exact neurobiological limits. This graph charts the vigilance decrement. It maps the inevitable, measurable drop in our cognitive processing efficiency during continuous effort. As your brain sustains effort, it produces adenosine. This metabolic byproduct accumulates rapidly, chemically inducing mental fatigue. Researchers have quantified this physical brain drain in laboratory settings for decades, yet modern work cultures still demand continuous, uninterrupted output. This decline in efficiency follows a measurable metabolic pathway. Designing a reliable workflow requires treating recovery as a functional requirement to manage the byproducts that inevitably halt performance. This timeline plots brainwave activity over 30 minutes. Early in the session, we see sharp, erratic beta waves, representing a state of high cognitive efficiency. As processing power declines, those patterns shift into wider, sluggish theta waves. This is the theta creep. The biological logic of the 25-minute Pomodoro method is that it halts effort right before this steep theta decline begins. But time intervals also leverage dopamine, the brain's primary molecule for motivation and reward prediction. Dopamine fuels our drive when we anticipate a reward. By setting a 25-minute timer, we shift that reward signal to a near-term finish line. These time constraints convert an amorphous workday into a sequence of micro-challenges, repeatedly hijacking the anticipation mechanic. At the macro level, these intervals nest perfectly within the 90-minute basic rest activity cycle, aligning our work with innate ultradian rhythms. Time constraints are precise pharmacological interventions that leverage our own neurotransmitters for sustained drive. Even with perfect timing, focus shatters if the brain is tracking unresolved obligations. This is known as the Zeigarnik effect. The brain's working memory has a strictly limited capacity, which is quickly consumed by tasks that remain actively processed in the background. Monolithic, unbroken projects leave these loops open for hours or days, resulting in immense cognitive tension and stress. Clearing this tension requires micro-completions, artificially creating finish lines for smaller segments of work. Breaking tasks down into independent, finishable segments provides regular closure, preventing working memory from bottlenecking. This is why maintaining a physical distractions list during a focus block is highly effective. The simple act of writing down an intrusive thought disengages it from active working memory. Achieving psychological closure on subtasks is a mandatory biological prerequisite for entering a deep flow state. Our environment dictates our cognitive load just as much as our internal working memory constraints. Neuroscience data shows how visual clutter in the physical workspace actively competes for processing resources. Multiple non-essential items trigger mutual suppression, a constant push and pull dynamic inside the visual cortex. The brain expends its finite cognitive energy just to filter out this irrelevant visual noise. This continuous filtering drains energy, accelerates cognitive fatigue, and raises systemic cortisol levels. Highly prolific creators have historically relied on rigid, constrained work environments to isolate their focus. Simplifying your physical environment creates a metabolic shield. By removing visual noise, you preserve the energy your prefrontal cortex would otherwise waste on filtering irrelevant signals. Auditory environments can also actively tune brain weights. A 2025 study in Nature Scientific Reports proved that precisely engineered 40 Hz gamma binaural beats enhance sustained attention. The operational protocol requires these beats to be initiated 10 minutes prior to a task to prime neural readiness before the work begins. This acoustic masking creates stochastic resonance. It drowns out unpredictable background sounds that otherwise break focus. Sound is an engineering tool used to artificially induce the exact neural frequencies required for vigilance. Between these intense focus blocks, the human brain requires genuine recovery to clear the accumulated adenosine and fully restore glucose. Attention restoration theory calls this soft fascination, engaging in effortless observation of nature or rhythmic breathing. Checking a phone or reading emails or watching videos during breaks keeps the prefrontal cortex engaged and actively prevents recovery. Engaging in roughly 17 minutes of interoception, internal bodily awareness, activates the brain's default mode network. This scheduled low-stimulus rest is the only biological mechanism proven to reset our perception of time and permanently reduce attentional blinks. Sustained focus requires coordinating our internal physiology with our external environment. We start with the temporal rule, working in strict 25 to 90-minute intervals to halt effort before the theta creep begins. Next is the cognitive rule, capturing distractions and closing zygarnik loops to free working memory. Then the sensory rule, eliminating visual mutual suppression and deploying 40 Hz acoustic masking. Finally, the recovery rule, using interoception to engage the default mode network and clear metabolic waste. Ultimately, sustained concentration is an engineered state. It emerges when we coordinate our internal neurobiology with our external environment, treating focus as a biological output rather than a character trait.